made the coffee yet? What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Coffee Table Talks podcast. I've got a wonderful guest. You guys already know. There we go. Got to articulate, Ricky, that I've got a wonderful guest across from me. But before we get into that, listen, guys, I've got this thing on YouTube. I've got it on Spotify. Both deal here. I need you to subscribe, share it, do all the wonderful stuff that influencers ask you to do on the daily. Also, I'm doing a kind of GoFundMe campaign. It's only if you want to. You don't have to. If you want to throw $3 here or there, that is just fine. I will leave a link down in the comment sections or down in the descriptions below. By all means, follow that. If you don't want to do that and you just want to share it, good enough for me. Ricky, brother, what is going on, man? How are you doing?
Just working it, buddy, working it.
Welcome to the podcast, man. I've made you a nice cup of coffee. It's nice, warm, and cozy in here. Can you do a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, my name's Ricci Mason, originally from Pittsburgh. Born and raised in Pittsburgh. Left Pittsburgh at 17 years old when I signed on the dotted line to go in the Marine Corps. Product of a single mother with two siblings. Unfortunately, my one sibling passed away a little over a year ago, so he was 11 months older than me. He's like what do they call it, an Irish twin. So yeah, we were running buddies. We were good. He was totally other end of the spectrum. I was in the Marine Corps. I was law abiding, and my brother, I tell you what, he liked his alcohol and his little bit of little smoke here and there. But that's just different atmosphere. But anyway, I was born and raised there. Went in the Marine Corps at 17. Was in the reserves and ended up actually I was a prior service recruiter because I couldn't go in as an MP until I was 21. So once I turned 21, that was when I was eligible to be an MP. This is way back in 82 to 88. So it's been a few years that I was in the Marine Corps. So ended up here at Naval Air Station as prior service and got out pretty quickly when I got down here. And was hired on by Cobb County Department of Corrections, which fell under Department of Public Safety. So it was part of like the police department and fire department. It was DPS. And worked there for about 9 years. While I was there, I became EMT. I was actually loaned out to Cobb County Sheriff's Office SWAT team, and humbly say this because of my shooting skills with a pistol. So I humbly say that. But I became an EMT while I was working there. Actually sent me to school resource officers class there, which I went down to Forsyth and completed that. Never knew why I took that, but later on in my career, God showed me why I did that. It was amazing. But yeah, I did that. I was like the team medic on the SWAT team. I was the medic for the prison. Whenever the doctor came in, we took care of issues, sick call. There was an injured inmate, because at that time we had work details. You always saw the work details out on the streets. So if there was any issues out on the streets, inmate gets hurt, we went out and treated him or whatever. Got ambulance out there and triaged the scene out there. And just throughout that career, towards the end of that career, with the corrections, I got enrolled in Gupton Jones College of Funeral Service. So I started a funeral service career while I was working in the prison. At the same time, I was a single parent of a young boy. So I was burning the candle both ends. And my son was probably about 7 years old when I transferred from corrections to funeral service. It was a roller coaster around that time because he developed a thing called lobar pneumonia, almost killed him. So I was dealing with all this. So I was working full time at the prison. I was transitioning into funeral service. My son gets lobar pneumonia, so I'm playing paddleball with myself. And fortunately, he came out of that, and it was full recovery from that. So I had to leave the prison system to do my internships for funeral service. Went and did my internship funeral service, a small funeral home in Marietta. And when I got all that done, I, had that knack to get back in law enforcement. I mean, if anybody knows, when you're in funeral service, if your name's not up on the placard, you're not going to get paid a living wage. So it was difficult being a single parent at the time. So shortly after that, I got all my internship done. I applied for Marietta and Cobb Police. So I was second on the list at Marietta Police, so I immediately went there. And just to back up a little bit, I was police officer trained and correctional officer trained at the same time. So I was marketable at that point. I was marketable to go to any police department I could, and I would go back on the street. So I went to Marietta, did my Marietta time there, got processed in there. While I was at Marietta, I was uniform patrol initially. Obviously, you get trained as a uniform patrol. Went uniform patrol and also started into the STEP program, which is the Traffic Fatality Investigation Unit. So I did that, started all those classes there, and ultimately ended up on motorcycles at Marietta. So I was a STEP investigator and a motorcycle guy. So it was all the same unit. We all worked together. It was 5 of us worked on the team. So between the investigators and motors, we all did every call out, as we call it, every call out. We worked them all together. So everybody went to every call out. So towards the end of my career there, I left there about 2004 when I returned back to Cobb County. I talked to the chief at the time. He said, come back, ride one of my motorcycles. I said, okay, chief, gotcha. So internal affairs called me, said, hey, chief, why don't you come back over? So I was transitioning from Marietta Police to Cobb Police in 2004. Went back to Cobb Police, got back on motors 2006, and rode out my career until 2019, where I retired as a police officer. Then stepped up as I did that in 2019. I put my name in to run for chairman of the Board of Commissioners. So at the time it was Mike Boyce who was the chairman. There was an opponent, Larry Savage, and of course me. So there's 3 hats in the ring at the time. I knew deep down that there wasn't really a major chance of ever doing anything, but I wanted my voice heard. And I was a voice of the officers on the street. I wanted my voice heard, so these guys in politics heard what we had to say. And at that point, there was not a pay raise for the police department in 17 years. But they just built a brand new stadium. So I wanted the voice of the people, of the beat officers, of all the people wearing a badge. I wanted their voice to be heard, and that's where I stepped in. And I think that brings me to where I'm at now, especially with the sheriff's race, because I want the people's voice to be heard in everything that's going on, in all the improprieties that's happening in the sheriff's office. Somebody needs to step up and say, hey, this is wrong.
Well, Ricky, here's the thing, man. Here's what I love is you've given me a layout of like everything that you've done over the years leading up to the point where you're at now, where you're running for sheriff, of this area. What's fascinating is when you observe what you said, which many of my listeners just did, right? You hear the word service, right? It's very thematic. It's very thematic in your life here, the word service. And, one of the things that I love doing, especially with politicians, dude, is I love taking apart this idea of service, because no matter what, if you're a politician that's getting in just to get your name out there or whatever, there is a semblance of service in your life that kind of follows you all the way through. It's what propels us. Well, ego propels us, of course. But hey, man, service as well. So, Ricky, here's what I want to ask you, man. When did you feel first propelled into service? What do you think was that like moment where you're just like, man, this is the direction where I want to go. This is where I'm being led. What did that look like?
Well, I remember way back in middle school, I had this event happen in middle school. I'll never forget it. It was, the library was set up in this particular middle school. You walked in the door and there was a wall there and there's steps on each side of the wall. Well, we had a career day there. And I was going into the library just to see what type of careers they had in there. So I walk in there, turn left, walk down, I think it's maybe 3 steps, turn the corner, and there's a round table that sat right over that wall. When I turned to my right, I saw this man, and then we'll call him a man. I mean, I saw a man in the Marine Corps dress blues. And this guy was very staunch. He was very professional. He was very impressive. He had high and tight, very clean cut. He presented himself like impeccably. And I stood there and watched him for a moment, and I saw these kids just bantering him. And I was like sort of offended. I'm like, you shouldn't be doing that to that man, because he's representing something. He's representing the service of our country. And I was offended, but I was just amazed at this guy. And I looked at him and I spoke to him a few times and almost intimidated, but I felt the inner drive to say, hey, I appreciate what you do. And between that and looking at that man and how firm and strong he was and how confident he was, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to serve the people in that capacity. At the same time, I had family members that were in law enforcement in the local community. And I always, every summer, my mom was a single parent, so every summer I would go with him, and he would be my mentor throughout my young life. So with combination of those two occupations, if you say, or that type of service to the community, that's where my heart drove me. I mean, that drove me to serve the community, serve the people, serve the nation in a fashion that only I wanted to do. I mean, it just drove me. It was just an inner desire to be in that role.
Here is, Ricky, the reason why I like doing this, man. Getting to the foundation of understanding an individual's character and where this feeling of service comes from, right? You brought up the word mentorship and how that was important and pivotal in your life, given that you didn't have a father figure. You were raised by a single mom. You latched onto these strong male archetypes, right? And in that way, they poured into you to where you were able to propel yourself further into that aspect of service. Ricky, when you're running for sheriff like you are, right? Whether you know it or not, right? You're taking these foundational things and you're bringing it into that potential role that you may feel, or rather that you may fill, right? How would mentorship look in the role of Ricky if he was sheriff?
Oh, it'd be paramount. It'd be a foundation that I would want to lay out. You got to understand that in me at 59 years old, I went into law enforcement in this county at 23. That age is it's very pivotal. It's very impressionable to somebody at that age. So when you look at your seniors command staff, you look at those guys, you got to look how clean cut they are. I mean, that's the mentorship, that's the drive, that's the thing that you want to represent. You want them to carry on in your shoes to represent that type of career path, something that they can strive for. And I think that's the goal, is to lead the people, lead your troops, not get behind them and expect them to do whatever they want to do. You got to lead by example. And I'm a firm believer of that. And being in that particular role as a sheriff, you got to show those people that you care about them. You got to show those people that you'll do anything that they have to do. And it's a Marine Corps motto. I mean, we were raised in the Marine Corps like that, right? Your superiors, your first sergeant's gonna do the same thing you do. He's gonna get down there in the potholes, or the foxholes, and they're gonna get out there. They're gonna shoot with you. But I think that's what I strive for, is to lead these kids, and I call them kids because they're only kids, to do things that I would do with them. I wouldn't expect them to do them by themselves. So the leadership role right there as a sheriff, I think that's the pivotal role, is to be the mentor, be the leader, be the person that they thrive to be, and give them leader by example traits.
Ricky, I have a tendency to agree with you there, man. Gosh, you and I keep saying, man, it's so weird. I picked it up when I was listening to Jordan Peterson one time, and I haven't let it go. That's how he does it. We seem to agree in the sense of mentorship. I learned that, there I go again. I learned that from the Marine Corps. Sure enough, man, you lead, well, one, you lead by example. And then two, you lead by doing the exact same thing that your guys are doing. You help them along. You don't necessarily give them the answers, Ricky. You don't give them the answers, but you kind of tote them along so that they learn in the end, right? And then they're able to pass down that information from generation to generation. And that's how, what is it? It's like why on the blues, like the Marine Corps blues, we still have the same buttons and the stripes and the tradition, right? Tradition is just so huge. Well, Ricky, you've had a long life of service, man. Certainly you've gone through some harrowing things. I wouldn't doubt it. How have those harrowing things played a part in the way that you kind of view the community, and the way that you approach the community when you go out and you deal with really the really troubled part of our community, man? What does that look like?
Well, the mindset of the sheriff, the mindset of any leader, is the nonpartisan approach to the people that you serve. regardless of the economical status or whatever, wherever they're coming from. Big things about immigration. They're people just like you and I. You're not there to abuse them. And like I tell people all the time, Lady Liberty, Lady Justice has a blindfold on. There's no reason for us to be judgmental by what we see. You got to treat everybody equally in a nonpartisan role. And the people around you, the people that you serve, you got to serve them equally. It doesn't matter if they have $1 million in the bank or 2 cents in their pocket. I mean, it'd be fair, and you have to treat people fairly, regardless of what race, color, gender, creed, whatever way you want to approach it. It's all about nonpartisanship and being fair to everybody as a human being. Everybody's created equally. Everybody should be treated equally. You should have that heart for people. So that's my approach on trying to keep it between the lines.
Yeah, man. Oftentimes you'll see these videos, right? And I understand it's like, okay, race, color, creed, et cetera, right? Those are the kind of blanket things we often go to, but you'll see these videos when it comes to police officers, when it comes to the sheriff's office, et cetera, marshals, whatever have you. And they're not necessarily dealing with somebody who has the cognitive function of you and I, right? They're sometimes dealing with somebody who is a little less gifted, if you will, right? That must be difficult when you're dealing with somebody like that. How often, Ricky, does that come up, man?
Oh gosh, man, more times than it should. I couldn't count how many times that you came up on a special needs person. You never knew you don't know what's going on. This person looks normal, but if they're special needs, they have some type of disability. And the thing is, you have to keep a broad spectrum view of everything that you deal with. Drugs, any type of drugs. And we spoke at the forum last night, and I was talking about mental health issues. Mental health issues could be anything from genetic to manufactured narcotics to the environment. There's so many different aspects of life that could create a mental health issue or something that's going to inhibit your thinking abilities or your responsibilities. And more times than not, I would rather react on caution. And I think that the people that have any type of cognitive problem, they need to be handled with kid glove care. And there's times that I've seen it on patrol, on TV. You see these people that some officers just don't understand. They just don't understand. And I think that's a big thing in the community now, is understanding those special needs. One of my good friends that I work with at Marietta, his wife has a ministry for special needs kids. And I also, when I worked at, just to back up just a little bit, when I came out of, when I didn't get the chairman board, I went to work for Cobb School Police for 2 years. My heart was at special needs. Loved special needs kids. They're just amazing because they're so pure. They're so innocent. And that's the way I think you got to treat, even from kids to adults. You got to treat them with purity and innocence, because you don't know what's going on. You can't snatch them up and manhandle them because they didn't respond to your commands. And there's just so many different aspects of the mind that we don't know about. And react on caution more than reaction, I think, is probably the best approach to something like that.
Yeah, man. Ricky, I was with the Cobb County Police at one point, right? I was just kind of walking with them. I did it's like a trash cleanup thing that I would do once a month with my college Republicans, right? Not, partisan, who cares? But with my college Republicans specifically, we'd go out, we would pick up this trash off the side of the road, and we'd have an officer join us, all of that fun stuff, just for safety, right? And he would accompany us along this road, and he would explain to me dealing with the homeless, the homeless situation up in this county, and understanding that it's not so simple as just telling these folks to get off the street or go to Must Ministries or go to this place or go to that place, go to this church. They're very much like that is their home. The road is their home. Right. And oftentimes, man, it's that you are dealing with the special needs person who is homeless, or the veteran who's gone through some kind of trauma, man, which was crazy. And I watched him work with these people as we were, going up and down the road, and he wasn't throwing them in the back of his car. He was talking to him. He was, basically relaying genuine human, what is it? Not necessarily affection, but
Kindness.
kindness, talking, right? What is your opinion, Ricky, on the homeless situation up in this area? Do you have one?
I absolutely do, and I think the homeless are. And I've made contact with, I couldn't tell you how many homeless. Actually, probably about 3 weeks ago, excuse me, I was going up Cherokee Street up towards Kennestone. And right as you turn that, get into that bend at Kennestone, I looked at the side and there was appeared to be homeless guy sitting on the little curb there. It was cold, it was raining. All he had was like one of those little thin hospital blankets or sheets, or it's like a sheet, but they call it a blanket, but it's real thin, real light. And I passed him, and I was thinking, that's just not right. It's just not right. So I looked in my back seat. I was a Suburban, so I looked in the back, and I had a quilt back there. So I went up the street, turned around, came in the back street, and I went up to him with this quilt and just wrapped it around him. And he just, I don't think he was completely there functionally, mentally, because he's talking about, he has to go get his airplane and stuff like that. And it's sad. It's sad to see these guys on the street. And like you said, veterans, there's so many veterans on the street. So many veterans on the street, and they'll get a check, but they don't want to live anywhere. That's where they choose to be, and you got to respect that. You've got to respect that. And I don't know how many people have tried to get off the street and try to, and I'd put them up in a hotel room. Say, hey, do you need a room for the night? Come on, let's go. Just because of the weather, something's happening, weather-wise, it's too cold, too hot, or whatever. I just give them a spot for the night. And I remember working at Marietta one time. There was a sergeant there that put a whole family up around Christmas for a week. They were living on the street, and you can tell the people that are deeply in need and want to help. And like you said, the veterans is a prime example, because these veterans, they want to be recluse. And they want to find their own little hole in life. And there's so many stories I could tell you about the homeless population. My goal would be to find something. Must Ministries. I know Must Ministries is big. There has to be some way to assist the ones that want the assistance and provide for the ones that don't want the assistance. Maybe, clean clothes every once in a while or something like that. I know Must provides Ike Reinhardt is fantastic. He takes care of Must Ministries. And I think that's imperative that we keep that and support Must Ministries, because they do phenomenal stuff with homeless. And I don't know I know they have a big facility. I know that they care for a lot of people. It's just there's a mindset we have to get that these people are people too. And these people might have mental illness. These people might need some treatment. Maybe they didn't have their medication. Maybe that's why they're, they have exhibit some signs of mental illness. So my heart goes out to homeless. I think it's an atrocity that we as a country accept the fact that these guys are laying in the dirt, laying in the mud, not being cared for. But you also got to remember that a lot of these guys choose to do that. So there's a fine balance on taking care of the homeless, whether they want help or not, and the mental aspect of it.
One of the things that I noticed, Ricky, when I was doing this, right, was these individuals in regard to Must. Let's take Must, for example, right? Must does provide all of these amazing things, everything you need: shelter, food, clothing, blankets, et cetera. They've got it. The only thing that they require is that you stay within a boundary, right? We're going to set these parameters around your life, and you need to abide by those parameters. And these guys, these women, whatever, they aren't used to that. They aren't used to these parameters. They're used to this quote unquote kind of free life, this free reign, if you will. And then when they feel these walls closing in, these boundaries coming in, right, they feel constricted. And this is something I think about pretty often, Ricky, in terms of how we need to start addressing the homeless. This very early thoughts that I've had about this. I think addressing the homeless is going to be a long game. I think addressing the homeless is going to, in terms of like now, if we start now, it's not going to be fixed when Ricky's still sheriff. It's going to be down the road, but you start moving towards a more correct direction. And I think interaction and humanizing is the beginning of that, and kind of understanding where they're coming from. Now, that being said, though, Ricky, I want to ask you one more question. This one's a little bit of a hot button issue right now. Okay, so it's going to press you a little bit. Now, of course, we've got Lake and Riley, the issue of Lake and Riley. And this was a beautiful young woman, over in UGA that had her life taken from somebody who has been in and out of this, jail, prison, what have you, system for some time. And of course, he was an illegal immigrant. It's what a lot of folks are thinking about right now, man. At the dinner table, everybody's talking about it. I'm knocking on doors for candidates, and one of the very first things they want to bring up is illegal immigration. Ricky, what does illegal immigration look like to you as somebody who's running for sheriff?
The federal government has a 287G, and it's what it is. It's an immigration process that the ICE immigration comes into a jail, a county jail, to the sheriff's office, gets the sheriff to contract with them, if that's, lack of better terms, contract with them. What they do is they train deputies to work the jail, and they do all the immigration process, the 287G. And from my understanding is that if they have those immigration officers per se, but they're also deputies, they can only be utilized in that manner. So, because that's where, they get funding for them, and the federal government gives grants and all that stuff for that program. That's a good program. I think it's a little older, but my understanding is there's a legislation on the table right now in the governor's office in House Bill 1105 that addresses that at a state level. So if you have, and it requires police officers, sheriffs, deputies. If you're a law enforcement officer, and I haven't read it completely. My understanding is I talked to a senior executive of another agency, and their understanding is that is a parallel to the 287G, but it's on a state level. So you're required to address the issue if they are wanted, violent crimes, anything that falls under the parameters that they have set. And if you don't, you will be there. The first, you can be charged with it as a misdemeanor. So I think it's imperative that we keep the borders tight. I think it's imperative that we address the immigration issue insofar as crime. I know a lot of Mexicans, Brazilians that are law-abiding citizens that are per se citizens. So that's and to be honest with you, I know a restaurant owner that owns a Mexican restaurant, and he is against illegal immigration. So that's coming from somebody of the Hispanic culture. They don't even like it. So what does that tell you? We need to address the issue. We need to get the borders. We need to vet all these people coming into this country. There's too many people coming into this country at a time. We can't control that. And the violence, the cartels and everything, those are coming in as well. So these are people that are going to resist any type of structure, any type of law enforcement, any type of roles and regulations that we hold. So my answer to that question is we have to tighten up our borders.
Yeah, man. I think you're hitting the nail on the head with that one, Ricky. Absolutely. And it definitely comes from the federal government. Trust me, I understand the difference between sheriff of a county or whatever, and the job of the federal government, because certainly it is the job of the federal government to handle this. It's like in the Constitution or something. It's weird. Anyway, brother, I want to thank you so much for coming on, Ricky. I loved the conversation, but I tell you what, just before we go, just like we're sitting at a coffee table here, I want you to imagine that the viewer is at the coffee table with us. Just look at this cameraman and tell the folks that will be, potentially voting for you, why they should vote for you.
Well, I got, just to start, I have 35 years of law enforcement in this county. It's diverse. I have diverse training of several different. I have detention. I have patrol. I have medical. I have several different types of training that can encompass that job. And the biggest and most important one is the detention facility. That's the constitutional responsibility of the sheriffs to take care of the jail and take care of the courthouse. I want to reel it in. I want to bring everybody into the same place. I want the jail fully staffed because we have too many people dying in the jail. And the lack of manpower in the jail is dangerous not only to the deputies, but it's also dangerous to the inmates. And like I said last night, that these inmates aren't hardened criminals. They could have a bad check. They could have got a DUI, never got bonded out. But that could be your sister, could be your brother, could be your mother. So when you have a shortage of deputies in the jail and you are putting your own family members at risk for no apparent reason, I think we have an issue there. I mean, the priority is the jail. So we need to keep everybody safe in the jail. That's my first priority. Second priority is to keep the courthouse safe. The courthouse is a very public place. You're apt to get more resistance in that area. So that's also a place that needs to be addressed. One other big point is we have to be very frugal on our spending. We have to be the spending that's going on in the government right now is incredibly large. We have to be fiscally responsible for everything that we do because that's your tax dollars that's being spent. And there's tens of millions of dollars over budget right now in that department in the sheriff's office. So I want to be a very frugal person. I am personally. I am with other people's money. And that's probably the biggest thing that people get offended by is irresponsible spending. And I assure you that if you researched it, you'll find that it's there. It's there. But I don't want the people, I don't want the taxpayers, I want the people of Cobb County to take the brunt of this incredibly bad spending and irresponsibility. So me as sheriff, I got my heart into it. I hope that you can understand that by the interview today. I'm very, very down-to-earth type person. I'm here for the people. I'm here for the troops. I'm here for the citizens. I work the street. I put my arms around homeless people. I put my arms around old people. I worked on an ambulance for a few years. There's a compassion there. I just have a compassion for service for the people of Cobb County. I think me as the sheriff, I think you'll see that. You'll see me leading from the front. I will be at events. I will be serving the people of this county the way that they're supposed to be served. You'll see this face in the public everywhere you need me. I'll have an open door. I'll have people in place. If we have any bad situations, we'll address them. But I think I'm the best candidate because I'm the most well-rounded, trained person that is in the pool for the sheriff's position. And I hope that you would definitely consider voting for me. My name's Ricci Mason, and I'm running for sheriff of Cobb County. Thank you.
All right, Ricky. Well, cheers, brother. It was good talking to you, man. It was a good talk, dude. Absolutely.